And now, you're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello, everyone out there in Tampa Bay and beyond. This is James Mills coming at you for the RBLR Sports podcast. I am here tonight to cover the Rowdies, and I am with a particularly hyped Carlos, it seems. How are you doing, Carlos, on the other end, I think in D.C. now?
It's a banger, James. I'm in Northern Virginia, technically. I'm right across
Let's
the
be
river.
technical about this.
Yeah, we're going to be precise if we're going to say this. Yeah, shout out to whatever the name of the intro song is, because it gets me hyped every time. It's October 21st. There's a big debate going on right now about whether we celebrate Halloween this weekend, which would be Friday the 26th, or the following weekend, which would be closer to Halloween, but it would be November.
Interesting.
And I don't see how you could celebrate Halloween in November. That's my opinion. So we got the pumpkins out and about here. I think we're celebrating it this weekend, in my opinion. So happy Halloween week, is what I'm going to say to the Rowdies Nation out there. A not so happy Rowdies game day this weekend, but whatever, doesn't matter. Everything sucks. Interestingly, we will not be at Al Lang this upcoming week, by the way. We can talk about that in a little bit. We played, by the way, I feel like it's worth reminding everyone that last game against North Carolina was a home game in Cary, North Carolina, which is a fun tidbit there. It doesn't really happen too often. And that's where we're at, James. It's Monday, October 21st. The Bucks play in an hour in a big game against the Ravens. Tampa Bay Sports. What a time to be alive. What's going on down in your neck of the woods, closer, by the way, to the new Rowdies home venue than Al Lang. James, how's it going?
Yeah, a lot of hinting at future topics here, but I'm doing well. The weather, even in Florida, is actually nice. I can go outside, and even with my very pale skin, I will not suffer terrible effects from the sun in 5 minutes' time. So that's positive.
Let's go.
But on the other end, Carlos, you had already mentioned this too. This past weekend, the Rowdies unfortunately went away from home as the away team, or excuse me, as the home team. As the home team played in Cary, North Carolina, and it was the actual home team, North Carolina FC, former Railhawks, who beat us 2-0. No points for anyone in our own standings, but we do get another chance to have our predictions because we have 2 games to go through and preview this weekend.
At IMG.
Wednesday and this weekend. Yeah. Those will take place at IMG Academy Soccer Stadium. I believe that there are 700 tickets available, which will first be divvied up amongst the supporters groups and season ticket holders. If there are more tickets, then I assume at that point they would go on sale. So, Carlos, I'm going to say maybe the Rowdies can put on a costume as a winning team this week. Maybe.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's my segue from Halloween into something that we were already talking about several moments after the Halloween special.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Are we calling this RBLR Halloween special? Is that what we're rocking with here?
We'll have to have Eureka put some spooky stuff in the thumbnail at least, if not in the background.
Like some spooky Halloween face filters in the editing after this. Can you do that? He said no. What do we pay him for, James?
I don't know. We're going to have to review all of our contracts again.
Yeah, we're going to have to get our attorneys on this. This is absurd.
Over a pit of lava like we do every year.
Yeah. This is absurd. James, everything sucks. The Rowdies aren't great. We're playing at IMG Academy to a crowd of 700 people because that is the capacity. So if nothing else, we will almost certainly have 2 sold-out games to close out the year.
You would hope.
As a benefit. So there we are. Monday, October 21st. James, let's get into this, huh?
Let's get into this. Please, of course, like and subscribe to us on YouTube, any major podcast platforms. Follow us on all social media at RBLR Sports. You know the deal. Let's do the quick recap. Now, I will say I am working because of the hurricane. I work in homeowners claims. It is obviously a busy time for me. So I get off work every day at 7 p.m., and that includes the weekends. I did not see this game, and I have not had a chance to. So I'm going to do the quick recap, and I'm going to lean on my good pal Carlos to do the analysis tonight.
That's never a good idea, but I'll try my best. I'll try my best.
All right, let's get into the quick recap, though. Jordan Farr started in net. It was actually something that was reported by RBLR Sports that Phil Brennan was supposed to be in net, but he suffered a concussion in training, so he was not available. Jordan Doherty, Freddie Kleeman, and Aaron Guillen started in front of him. Pacific Nyongabire, Ben Bender, Lewis Hilton, Blake Bodley started in front of them, and up top were Cal Jennings, Manuel Arteaga, and Josh Perez. Olex Anderson and Evan Conway scored the 2 goals for North Carolina FC. We obviously never could. We were shut out of this one again. We did want to say, first of all, thank you for everyone who tuned into the RBLR Sports Watch Along. As I said, I could not make it because I was working from 5 to 7 and before. Carlos, I believe that you were unavailable at that time too, but we had...
I was in Annapolis, Maryland, of all places, believe it or not.
Interesting.
Yeah, super random. Yeah. But the RBLR watch party, James, heard great things about it. Plenty of guests around.
Yeah.
Partnered up with Unused Substitutes podcast, a little podcast crossover moment. I am so sad that I missed it because it would have been a great time. But thank you to everybody who joined us for tuning in because it was a blast. By all accounts, Eureka, our silent overlord in the background, has attested to that multiple times before we started recording. I'm sure he'll type something up in a minute telling us about how much fun he had. And thanking everybody who joined as well. What a great time. Kenny Morales joined. I know we were going to have Ryan Davis pop in before we knew he was actually he was the commentator for this game somewhat last second. If you feel like putting yourself through the misery of watching that game over again, you can go back and watch it on demand on YouTube. I guess you want some more Rowdies content before the Hartford game on Wednesday. It's early. You need a Tuesday content to keep you going before you watch the Rowdies inevitably come back in incredible fashion and win 8-0 against Hartford on Wednesday. Go back and watch this one on demand.
And I was told also that we had a record turnout for an RBLR watch along. So fantastic. I'm glad that we had people join us there. Good stuff. Unfortunately, the Rowdies could not match us on the field, including Jordan Farr, who had yet another howler in net for the second goal. And
Howler. Halloween. Howl. Wolf.
There we go.
There it is.
There we go. It was just another segue. It was just another segue for RBLR Sports.
That's fantastic stuff, James. That's fantastic.
We'll do a quick standings update, and then I will turn it over to Carlos. The Western Conference playoffs are all set. There could be movement between who is in the playoffs, but all of the people who are in the playoffs and outside is already determined. So there is a little bit more to play for in the East than the West at the moment. I'm just going to go through the 2 standings on East and West sides because that's effectively where we are with only 1 game left for nearly every team in the league. Louisville have 73 points from their 33 games. Charleston have 61. Detroit, 53. Indy, 51. Rhode Island, 48. We have 46. Pittsburgh and North Carolina each have 45. Hartford, the other team that have only played 32 games, sit right outside the playoff positions with 43 points from their 32 games played. Obviously, that means that there is an important game going on Wednesday. Out west, New Mexico have 59 points from their 33 games. Las Vegas have 50. Sacramento have 49. The Switchbacks also have 49. Memphis has 48. Oakland 44, Orange County 43, Phoenix 42. And that is the playoff field out west. It might not be exactly how it lines up, but those are the teams who will be involved. So let's get back into the game. Carlos, like I said, I have not had a chance to watch this, unfortunately, although maybe that wasn't terrible for me. But the game did not go how we wanted. The game did not go how we needed, we could also say. How did it go for you? What did you see in this one?
Well, hold on. Before we jump into the game, I just want to remind everyone that in the last 10 games now, this is, with this loss, the Rowdies have lost 8 of their last 10 games, 2 wins. If you go back 2 further games back, that means the Rowdies have won 2 of their last 12 with 8 losses and 2 ties. So, James, we're getting to the point in the season. There's 2 games left. They're going to have to turn things around real quick between now and Saturday in these 2 games to see if we get anything going. But we'll save that for the preview of these last couple games in just a minute. But this game individually, James, not much going for the Rowdies at any point in this game, really. There was one decent opportunity that Fought Mob categorized as a big chance. It's my favorite stat in the entire world of soccer. One big chance It actually was a big chance because Kyle Jennings had a perfect ball delivered to his head from a Nyangabire across. Jordan Doherty tried to rip a shot off of a corner. It was a really well-structured set piece, actually, from the corner. Jordan Doherty was wide open. Took a bit of an extra step, I think, to set up the shot. Deflected out to Nyangabire. Nyangabire whips it across from the right side. And Kyle Jennings wide open in the middle of the box. A goal he scores 9 times out of 10. Maybe if you got kind of middle of the season to early of the season type of Kyle Jennings, that ball goes into the net. But I think just as the Rowdies have struggled as a whole, he has kind of struggled to find his goal scoring ability. And that certainly showed in this one. His one real decent look at goal went wide. And he absolutely should have buried that one. Again, it would have been 1-0. North Carolina scored 2 goals on us, obviously. Maybe that changes how the game plays out and we win this one 1-0 in the nail biter or something like that. That changes where we end up on the table. You mentioned earlier, we're in 6th place. Not great. There is a small possibility that we don't make the playoffs at all if this week goes, catastrophically. But that would be insane. It, again, possible, not impossible, certainly. But again, we have a game in hand on a lot of the teams around us. We can jump Rhode Island with a win. We'll save all of this. I'm getting ahead of myself. But that's all to say that this one Kyle Jennings goal missed at this point in the year when you only have 3 games left could have serious implications. North Carolina would go on to control the second half. We didn't. By the way, this was basically our only chance of the game, really, was this Kyle Jennings header. You look back, there was a couple of peppered shots we kind of just threw at the net. North Carolina goalie McGuire was never really challenged by anything other than this Kyle Jennings header. He didn't really have to do too much, but he was there when he had to be. So I guess kudos to him. Wish he could have let up an easier goal. But that was it for the Rowdies in terms of offensive creation. After that, second half, Alex Anderson comes out in the just most announced goal you've ever seen, really. It's really frustrating to watch because you look back and this is something that the entire Rowdies back line probably saw coming and just couldn't do anything about it because they were a few seconds too late. Yeah. They stepped up way too far. Kleeman comes out and actually does a good job of getting his head on that ball to kind of chop up this chance before it got too dangerous. Because of that, the entire Rowdies back line is a little further up than they should be, and Anderson's already sprinting. Whoever got the assist on that North Carolina goal, whose name I'm forgetting right now, incredible awareness, by the way, because he's facing his own goal. Anderson is sprinting behind him. He glances for a half second, sees that play developing, and puts in the most awkward pass you've ever seen that lands right at this guy's feet. He's in on goal. He outpaces the entire Rowdies back line and puts in an actually really nice finish. 1-0 to North Carolina. Early on in the second half, it starts to get away from us because, again, no real offensive creation. I told you the Kyle Jennings chance was really the only chance in this game for us. And that is true. The second half, nothing else happened really in our favor. 20 minutes later, Conway gets the second goal for North Carolina to put this one away. Again, in similar fashion, it was just kind of a long ball. Got it, incredibly direct vertical run, nothing complicated. This is the type of thing I run in FIFA on my Xbox games. I just hold Y and hope someone's at the end of the ball. It's frustrating because you see these guys are obviously incredibly talented soccer players. They're paid to do this. It's much easier for me to sit here and criticize them from my laptop in my new little apartment in Virginia, by the way, furnished now. It's not just an air mattress.
Very nice.
But you have to see this run happening, right? Again, I think it is true that they did see this happening. They saw this play developing. But Kleeman is obviously the slowest of the back three. He's a bit more clumsy, just as a taller guy. Doherty and Guillen are a little further up than they should be. And Conway just sprints by. Then we get to the part about Jordan Farr making another blunder in the back.
Yeah.
He absolutely, I think, gets – I'm looking back at a screenshot I took of the highlights here. Jordan Farr gets to this ball at about the same time as Conway. But what he tried to do was something we've seen him do a couple times this year, where he kind of just pokes it out to the left to pass it to a Kleeman or someone else on the back line. At this point in the game, this is where I will criticize a Rowdies player, despite me not having much athletic talent. This is just a blunder from Jordan Farr, which has happened a couple times this year, unfortunately for him.
Yeah.
Just boot the ball, man. Just like get in there, get stuck in. This is a time where if you're coming out that far, no pun intended, you have to like get stuck in, right? I mean, this is a moment where some goalies get a card, some goalies get a red card, but like just get stuck in, do it. Like you can't just try and do that little dinky pass there because that's what happens. It's the easiest, silliest, stupidest goal North Carolina is going to score all year.
Yeah.
And it was really frustrating. This game reminded me a lot actually of the North Carolina game from earlier in the year when we played them.
How convenient.
Yeah, the vibes were quite similar, except we weren't coming off of a hurricane at that time.
Right.
We came off of a hurricane of a game, by the way, that 2-2 tie against San Antonio to start the year. Then we went to North Carolina, a team that wasn't great, that still isn't that great. And we said, okay, let's get our bearings. Let's see if we can put together a decent result. The only goal we score, the only offensive creation we had this game ended up being Maldonado own goal. That was our 1-0 lead in the 63rd minute. North Carolina ties it up 12 minutes later. Again, I think the reason why this reminds me of that game, we didn't create anything. North Carolina didn't create that much either, but they did just enough. And this one, they actually ended up winning. Back on March 23rd, we're finding our identity. They're also trying to find their identity. They ended up drawing this 1-1 against us. And I think we got lucky in that game. In this game, we couldn't get lucky. No luck in our favor on this one. No. We just made the dumb mistakes and they capitalized. And they win this one 2-0. Okay. That's my semi-detailed recap of this one. You did the quick recap earlier. This is my kind of like rant, angry recap of this one. I'll caveat this by saying I didn't watch this live at the time. I had to go back and rewatch most of it. So, but again, I didn't miss much is my point. Like there wasn't anything being created. The flow of the game wasn't anything in particular favorable for the Rowdies. This was just a bad game. It was a bad game, and there's 2 games left in the season. By the way, North Carolina FC, you get a free home game. Admission is free. It's on a Saturday at 5. Where was everyone? Like the attendance was incredibly light. I'm going to throw that in there. I don't know. Carry North Carolina, show up a bit more for your team, man. That's crazy. Free admission on a Saturday evening. I'd be there. And that was it. It felt like one of those early season games that kind of don't mean much, but at this point, it does. Like it means more. We're coming up on the last couple games of the season. You need these points. The atmosphere wouldn't tell you that it's an important game, though, is what I'm trying to say. So here we are, James. That's my angry recap of this one. As someone who didn't get to watch most of this, thoughts on this one? Where do we go from here? Could this one have gone any differently, or was this kind of what we expected?
You know, it's hard to say because I think when we left last week, we obviously had a longer show because we had to do the 2 games recap and we had to do the predictions, and there were 4 of us giving predictions. I started and I went with a win because I thought that we could work towards manifesting that into the universe, that idea, but obviously it didn't go that way. If we take out the manifestation vibes, maybe that's the most likely outcome that we would have considered if we had been in a headspace that wasn't quite so fun, I'll say. I think that we were all doing relatively well in the recording space last week. I think that we were all having a good time. Ben Wilcox, hopefully included. He is not here to tell us whether I'm wrong, but it looked like we were fun. Yeah,
I think he had fun.
It looked like we were all having fun. So I think that we were all in a better headspace. If we were looking at it as rationally as possible, maybe a Rowdies away game is probably just about that at the moment, and that's unfortunate. It seems like we can't buy even a goal at this point. We have scored a couple in the last month or 2 since August, but it's not anywhere near enough, and it's certainly not what we should be scoring if you look at whatever stats there are from those games, and if you look at the talent of the roster. So I don't know. It's all very difficult to pinpoint, I would say. And it seems like this team is really sputtering right now. They are the exact opposite of cruising. If a sports car on the highway is cruising, we are an old jalopy that is barely getting out of the driveway.
Yeah, I think it broke down already. We're not even out of the driveway. We're stuck in neutral.
Yeah.
That's a saying, right? People say that.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, to your point, I think that's probably a true statement. This is probably what we should have expected going into this one. In my head, in my heart of heart, in my storyteller, journalism minor, right? I'm looking for the story. I was already imagining, wow, like the ESPN 30 for 30, the team like who went through the hurricane and they evacuated and everything was crazy. And after the hurricane, they came back and they won the trophy and they just this feel good story. Like, wow. Like, yeah, honestly, if that's the storybook ending you're looking for, I don't think we're going to find it in the Tampa Bay Rowdies this season. So just temper your hopes in this one. Who knows? Maybe Jake and the social team clips exactly what I just said right there at the end of the year when we win the trophy. There's like some sort of hype, like storybook video. You know,
I hope.
maybe I just manifested myself into like some sort of storybook ending video compilation. It's possible, I guess. And I'm going to say what I said at the end of every like major loss this season. This roster is way too good to be playing the way they are. Maybe something clicks. I don't know. I'm still, I'm still going to be the optimist I am in some sense and say there's a reason to watch these last few games, right? There's a reason to watch these last 2 games. If nothing else, because we're kind of on the verge of maybe not even qualifying to the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's a reason to watch these games. And who knows? You win this game on Wednesday. We'll talk about it in a minute. Sorry. I'm still getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry, James. I'm sorry. Don't get mad at me. You climb the table 1 spot. You're in 5th place. You're 3 points behind Indy. And you play Indy at home, right? You have the goal differential advantage. There's a world where you get back into 4th place and get that one home playoff game. Now, who knows, right? Who knows where we'd play that playoff game at home? Maybe it's at IMG again. It's a weird time, James. I don't really know how to describe the atmosphere on this team other than it's just kind of sad. Like It looks like they've in some sense that you look at some of the players' attitudes in this game. And there's some sort of attitude of having given up. Which is unfortunate because again, the roster is too good. Maybe something clicks. I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it. If you're on the Hard Rock Sports betting app in Tampa, I wouldn't put money on the Rowdies to win the title. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it's still possible. The roster is great. It could happen. But this is probably about what we should have expected going into this one. I was gonna posit a question to you, James, looking forward going into this week, but I guess we should just save that for the previews themselves. Okay. I feel like that would make more sense. Okay. You threw in a question here about why did we lose, and I'll just throw in here that we just didn't create anything. Like there was no offensive productivity. I'm on top of the 2 defensive mistakes. You can see that mistakes.
Even in just the highlights.
Yeah, I mean you could point to the 2 defensive mistakes as well, right? That were pretty. I mean, again, these goals were incredibly announced. These plays were incredibly announced. You could see these happening seconds ahead of time. So a little bit more focus, a little bit more lock in from that back line, and you avoid both of those goals. Jordan Farr gets a little stronger on the back. Maybe you avoid that second goal. You end the game 0-0. I don't know how much good that does you. I'm not quite sure at this point if that does any good in terms of like climbing the table. But it would be a draw, which would be better than a loss. So, okay. Before we start the questions about Robbie Nielsen, by the way, going into the offseason, I know there's a lot of like Robbie Nielsen. It's still his first season, so I'm still a Robbie Nielsen believer. By the way, I just want to throw this out there before everything goes to chaos. The guy is so talented, and I just have to believe like there's other factors at play in terms of like, you know, coming overseas, dealing with a totally new system, totally new league. I feel like there's got to be other stuff at play here, man, because this guy's too good a coach too. Like too good a roster, too good a coach, too good a tactician. For things to be going this way. So there's my bigger picture thing going ahead. James, man of the match for this one. Should we just jump ahead and do it?
Let's do it.
All right. My man of the match here, it was a tough one to pick. I went with Blake Bodley. James, I'm going to speak for you. And I know you went with Blake Bodley as well. Honestly, this was kind of a random pick for me in some sense. There wasn't a lot going on anywhere on the field for the Rowdies in this one. I was thinking about Lewis Hilton. We gave it to Lewis Hilton a lot the last couple of games. Blake Bodley had a decent game. He was fine. Pacific Young Ibire had a decent shout for it because he put in the only cross that led to anything. But Blake Bodley was just solid still consistently. He's still the guy on that side. He had to deal with this weird bit with like, Ryan Arabelle coming in. Not Ryan Arabelle. Oh my God. I just combined Zach Arabelle and Ryan Spalding. Ryan Spalding coming in and competing with him for his position. And he's taking back the spot because he had to. And he's been doing fine over there, James. I mean, there's just other factors at play. The team can't rely on one guy, but Blake Bodley has been consistent, if nothing else. So shout out to Blake Bodley. Like, man, he can't do everything. Poor guy. We just need the team to collectively kind of turn it on a bit more here. Okay. More importantly than the Rowdies struggling, James, I'm going to throw in a quick shameless plug in here. Liking and subscribing is free, but if you need some new threads, you can support this podcast by heading over to shop.rblrsports.com and checking out all the fun designs that have been cooked up. The link is in the description of this podcast. It's also down below. James is pointing at it vigorously on the live stream and the video feed. You're missing out. I mean, it's just fascinating stuff here. This pointing is 10 out of 10. He's throwing 8 fingers down. Good Lord. I mean, it's just incredible pointing talent here. Link in the description of this podcast, shop.rblrsports.com. Use the promo code COYR for 10% off, James. Can you believe that? 10% off.
I think that's incredibly generous of
That's a lot of percent.
Our wonderful producer Eureka is thinking of the people.
Yeah. Overlord Eureka, who can't add fun Halloween filters over us for some reason. 10% off. Go check it out. Shop.rblrsports.com. James, we are playing soccer this Wednesday.
Yes.
At IMG Academy.
Yes.
I'm doing ASMR. Tell us about this game, James.
Yeah, so this is one of the most important games that we will end up playing this whole season, it turns out, because of the prior losses. 4 in a row.
That would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
On Wednesday at 7:30, the Rowdies play Hartford at IMG Academy Soccer Stadium. As we have said, 700 people. It will be first come, first served to the supporters groups and then the season ticket holders. And possibly after that, we'll see how many obviously there are. But if you have the option to go to this, please get your ticket and please go there, because this game is absolutely crucial for the Tampa Bay Rowdies in 2024. If we do not get full points, we could miss out on the playoffs entirely. And if we miss out on the playoffs entirely, that would obviously be a bad way to end.
Monumental collapse if we miss the playoffs, James.
We were, for a very long time, third in the Eastern Conference. Please don't forget that we were third in the Eastern Conference up until, not even a month ago, Carlos. Not even a month ago. I could go through my notes that are literally above the ones I'm reading, but I'm not going to scroll up because it's going to make me feel sad.
Too much work.
So missing on the playoffs, obviously that would be terrible, and there would be a lot of calls for people to face consequences for that. I will just put it in that wording. Not me. No, not me. I won't face any consequences. I'll be back here on the mic unpaid. Yes, that's right. So yes, Carlos and I will not have to face any consequences. Luckily, we will still get to talk out of our butts about the Tampa Bay Rowdies. James Knowles out.
James Knowles out. Get him out of here. You're fired. You're done.
He's starting he's starting the calls. He's raising an army of pitchforks. He's getting them on Amazon for probably 50 cents because they're all on sale for Halloween.
It's the Halloween special. It's back.
Back. Of course. So while we have lost 4 games in a row, Hartford have not. They have only lost once since August 17th. That is quite a good record, in fact. Their last lineup looks relatively typical. Renan Ribeiro in net behind Michael Shields, Jordan Scarlett, Joe Farrell, and Emmanuel Samadia. Emmanuel Samadia might be replaced at right back by Tristan Hodge. Keep in mind. Beverly Makangila and Marlon Hairston should be the central midfielders behind an attacking midfield set of Danny Barrera, Marcus Epps, and Michi and Galina. Up top, we will almost certainly see Mamadou Dieng. He leads their team now with 10 goals ahead of Engalina's 8. So we have talked about how the Rowdies are doing very poorly. On the opposite side of things is Hartford. Hartford had a dreadful start to the season, whereas at the end of the year, they have turned it around and they are doing extremely well. Like I said, they've only lost once since August 17th. And within that time frame, we were supposed to have played them. Of course, this one was rescheduled. I think this was a Helene game that was rescheduled. So, we are playing it now on this Wednesday at IMG. And the problem here is that while Hartford are doing so well, they are also making a late push to get into the playoffs. That would probably necessitate knocking us out of the playoffs. We have to win this game. Right now, if we just want to go back to the playoff standings again, we are 6th with 46 points from our 32 games, and we play Indy last. Indy is even better than both us and Hartford at the moment. Hartford are right outside the playoffs with 43 points. They are 3 points behind us, and they also are on 32 games played. If they win this, obviously, they will at least get to level with us on 46 points. I don't know the goal differential, although I can pull that up right here. Our goal differential is 6, and theirs is -12. So I guess we would have at least that in hand. But at this point, our record is not looking all that well. Also, we have to keep in mind the other teams that are around us. North Carolina, whom we just lost to, they play and have 33 games. They have their 33 games, and Pittsburgh have 33 games. Both of those two teams are on 45 points. Both of them have a better goal differential right now. If either of them even gets a point in their next game on Saturday, they could leapfrog us as well. So these are all big possibilities looming over the horizon. North Carolina plays Las Vegas Lights at home, so that's not something that they're guaranteed to win, but it's something that they could win.
Yeah.
And Pittsburgh, I will just let you know, they are playing also at home against El Paso. Almost certainly a win there. Fantastic. Everything is pointing to this game being the biggest in our season in 2024. If we win, I don't think we have to worry. Yeah, no, we would not have to worry about the playoffs. We are guaranteed to be in the playoffs, at least ahead of Hartford, because they could not catch us there. It doesn't matter what North Carolina or Pittsburgh do if we win this game. If we draw, I think that we're better off, obviously, but that still puts us at the same level of peril, because the last game Hartford have, they're away to Orange County on Saturday. Actually, that is a hard game to play, but like I said, Hartford are doing well. These are all the permutations that we have to consider when we're looking at a game on Wednesday, followed by a quick turnaround on Saturday.
Yeah. A draw would put us in a pretty good position still if we're in terms of just qualifying to the playoffs, which I know is an incredible,
which might be minimum. 8th place.
Yeah, it is, again, bare minimum. I can't even imagine us really talking about this as a reality at this point in the year if we're talking about the end of the season back in March. But a draw puts us in a position where it's, I think, almost guaranteed that we're into the playoffs. Because, James, do you know what the USL's tiebreaker is? It's goal differential, right?
I'm almost certain it's goal differential. Let's see.
I can't imagine it's like head-to-head wins or anything.
You know what? It's not goal differential because, hold on. Actually, let me use the actual USL standings. Keep talking, and I'm going to pull it up.
Okay. So I'm going to fill in some space here while James looks this up by letting you listen to this plane that's
No, it
flying
should
by
be
me.
goal differential. It should be goal differential.
It is goal
Pittsburgh
differential.
is currently ahead of North Carolina in the standings. They're both on 45 points, and Pittsburgh has 11 plus 11. North Carolina has plus 10.
Wait. So wouldn't that mean Pittsburgh should be ahead of North Carolina if they
Pittsburgh
have
is
plus
ahead
11
of them.
goals? Oh, they are. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if goal differential, right? You get a draw here. Hartford would still be 3 points behind us going into the final game of the year. They're on minus 12 goal differential. We're on plus 6 goal differential. That would mean hypothetically they would have to win their last game by like 19 goals, right? Something like that. So again, this is assuming my unconfirmed information that it is goal differential as a tiebreaker, which I think almost certain it is.
Yeah.
A draw would almost like guarantee us a spot in the playoffs, if nothing else here. Against Hartford on Wednesday, by the way. A loss and things can get a little bit more tricky here, James. A little bit more tricky. North Carolina, like you said, and Pittsburgh have better goal differential than us. So even a draw for each of those teams would leapfrog them over us. And then a Hartford win or a draw at the end of the season and a loss for us would let them leapfrog us and we drop into ninth. Again, this is all looking ahead past these two games. We haven't even talked about the Indy game yet at all. But just letting everyone know that this is actually a reality that we're living in, that the Rowdies have a chance of not making the playoffs at all. I think unlikely. I'd like to hope it's unlikely. Because if we can get a single point in these last couple of games, we're probably in business as a potential 8th seed. But okay. More importantly, let's think a little more optimistic, James. You get the win against Hartford, right? You get the win against Hartford. You have a game in hand. Yeah, you're already into the playoffs. You get the win against Hartford. You leapfrog Rhode Island, jump into 5th place. You're exactly 3 points behind Indy. Who are you playing in the last game of the year, James?
Indy 11.
Okay, and you're 3 points behind them with a better goal differential. Pending 2 big wins to end the year, which would come with incredible momentum going into the playoffs. Pending 2 big wins here, everything we control our own destiny, right? That's what they like to say in sports when it comes to the end of the year. The Rowdies still control their own destiny. They don't need any help from anybody here. You win these last 2 games, you not only manage to claw your way into the playoffs despite everything that's happened, right? The hurricanes, the bad form, the random injuries, the playing at IMG Academy instead of Al Lake Stadium and playing in North Carolina as a home game. You get these last 2 wins and you kind of throw all of that out the window.
Okay. At least one home game in the playoffs.
You get at least one home game. Maybe at IMG, who knows? Maybe we play at Raymond James and sell out 60,000 people in green and gold. I don't know. It's probably not happening, but who knows?
That's something to manifest.
Look, let's throw it out into the universe. It could happen. This is where we are, okay? Just big picture. Think about all the possibilities that could happen here. You win these next 2 games, you're in business, you're in the playoffs, and you get a home game, okay? So be optimistic about this, James. Hartford is having a pretty good run of form. Like you said, it's kind of the polar opposite where they started off terribly and they're ending. You look at this last portion of the season, they look like a top 4 team. You would assume they played like this all year.
Yeah.
They're playing really good soccer. We're still a better roster. We're still a better team. And I don't think that's even debatable, to be honest. So you turn this up a bit. I'm going to continue to be optimistic here. And I'm going to say we come out of here. Are we doing predictions already?
Let's jump in.
We jump in. I'm going to say the defense gets its, together, right? It's going to be a big week here for this club. 2-0 win to the Rowdies to start building some momentum going into the Saturday game.
All right. I like that. I will tell you that our producer Eureka has joined you on the winning column with a 2-1 win. I was going to revert to my mean of the less optimistic and more reasonable, rational, whatever.
This is, very realistic take what you're about to give here. 1-1
draw. That is my prediction for this game. I'm not predicting a loss, which would be good, but or a loss would be bad, but it would be good at least to get a draw. But I would obviously vastly prefer a win. We lock ourselves in the playoffs. We give ourselves just that tiny bit of momentum to possibly give ourselves a home game within the playoffs. you got to consider there are a million permutations here.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you tie, right? You draw this one against Indy too, or sorry, against Hartford, and you get a win against Indy to close the year. Any combination of like a win and a draw, I'd be happy with to end the year at this
Honestly,
point.
yeah.
Right? Just get a win. I if we have to pick a game to get that win, I would prefer it be in the Indy game to close out the year, right? And by the way, that can jump you up to 5th place. Again, that's better than 6th place, right? You're traveling to so 5th place would travel to an Indy right now. We would travel to Detroit. Pretty tough game to do.
Especially, yeah.
I would hope we don't drop into 7th or 8th and we don't travel to Louisville or Charleston to open the playoffs. But hey, I guess if we do, it's better to get those games out early. Might as well. Whatever. Long story short, I think we can get the win in this one. I think your take is not only reasonable. I think it's pretty optimistic, actually, given the state of the team and how good Hartford looks. So I think that's actually a pretty James optimism moment, despite Eureka and I picking the W's here. I think it's a pretty optimistic James moment here. And I'm happy with that. So thank you for lightening up my day, James.
Perfect. I'm glad that I could do that. Let's get into the next preview because this one obviously is similarly important, but by then we could be in absolute dire straits. So we will have to see, and we will have to hope and pray ahead of time. But this Saturday at 7:30 p.m., also at the IMG Academy Soccer Stadium, the Rowdies will be hosting Indy 11. Yep. Indy have only lost one game since August 31st. Not as good a record as Hartford, but still a very good team. They are doing pretty well at the moment. Hunter Sulte will most likely be in net behind Aiden Stanley, Ben Ofemu, and James Musa at the back. The midfield has changed quite a bit recently, so these are the four who started the last 2 games, but keep in mind that this could possibly also switch up. Aiden Quinn, Jack Blake, Brem Sumaro, and the Academy kid, Logan Neidlinger, were the last midfield for the last 2 games. Like I said, though, that could change. They do have a lot of options that could slot in, and Jack Blake is a former Rowdies player, so that's something for us to keep in mind. Up top, we will most likely see Douglas Martinez, Malik Foster, and Augie Williams. I believe 2 of those joined in midseason. Malik Foster definitely did. Augie Williams, I might be wrong about that, but the latter, Augie Williams, has 10 goals this year, while Jack Blake also has 10, and Elliot Collier, usually off the bench, has 5. Aiden Stanley is their top assister with 7. He is also their best chance creator, and we should expect Indy to try to build up on the wings through their fullbacks, often the way the Rowdies would do. Aiden Stanley is going to be a big part of that, but you can expect to see apparently Logan Neidlinger being a big part of that too. So these are all the different things that we need to consider when we're going into this game. This one, of course, is going to be, like I said already, super, super important game. If this is the one that you are getting tickets for and you are going to pick between one or the other, and this is the one that you went with, please just make sure that you get there, you fill out the stadium, you're as loud as you can be. This is we have to do everything we can to cheer on the team. If we are going to give them some sort of home advantage at IMG, you gotta show up and do it. You gotta fill the stands at the very least. It's 700, but you gotta fill those stands.
Yeah, I don't doubt that happens, James. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I just almost died coughing in the background while I was on mute here. Yeah, it seems like this game will be one that's probably packed with 700 people in the stands, right? Yeah, this one will be something. It's incredible how different the vibes going into this game will be pending the result on Wednesday. This is an incredibly huge week. This game could be even larger a game than the one on Wednesday, pending how that result goes. So, yeah, I mean, let's see, right? I mean, Indy is a very good team. I think they're a decent enough contender for a championship if they get on the right run here. I mean, I don't see why they couldn't be a contender. Honestly, they look pretty good. Well, there's Louisville and Charleston in their way, probably that's why. But again, solid team. They've only lost one game since August 31st. It was a loss in September to North Carolina, of all teams, 2-0. They won their last game 3-2. They have the Williams duo, right? They take off one Williams and they bring in Romario Williams. It's incredible how the attacking power they have on paper is really something special. Between Augie Williams and Romario Williams on the same team, it feels kind of unfair. Yeah, and I don't think it's clicked as much as they would have liked it this year. But again, a really, really impressive roster on paper. Malik Foster up top too, by the way. Douglas Martinez is a name I'm not quite as familiar with in terms of his production. He only has 3 goals and 3 assists from that wing spot in 27 games this year. I know Guinzotti hasn't played in a while. I would assume he's injured because he hasn't played in a decent amount of time here. So we won't have to worry about Sebastian Guinzotti, at least, presumably. And that's where we're at, James. This could be a really interesting affair in Bradenton, Florida, the campus of IMG Academy, which I recently learned means International Management Group, by the way, for anybody curious.
Saying that because I had never known that.
International Management Group, which I don't think they're even affiliated with that organization anymore. I think they're owned by a different company. Whatever, it doesn't matter. If you want to read up on IMG, it's actually a pretty interesting layout and story. And thank you to them for hosting us, I guess. I appreciate it. Thanks for having the only working in not drowned soccer field in the west coast of Florida. James, this one will be an interesting one. Again, these are 2 teams that we're playing this week that have not lost in a decent amount of time. They don't lose too much in these last couple months. How do you think this one goes against a really solid Indy 11 team?
Yeah, so this is where I would be the actual downer, and probably if I were being as rational, as reasonable as I can, I would go with a loss. So in this one, I'm going to say that the Rowdies lose 2-1 to Indy 11. But I'm hopeful that Carlos and his optimism will lift me and prove me wrong very shortly.
I'm 1-0 win. Yeah, let's go. We win 1-0. I don't think this is not a reasonable take. I disagree actually with myself just now. I think it is pretty reasonable. It could happen. I think it kind of depends on how we do on Wednesday. If we get that win, I don't see why we can't ride that momentum, close out the season strong. I would really, really hate to end the regular season with a loss. I think that bodes very poorly for especially how we've done in the last few months. Mm-hmm. Going into the playoffs with another loss, it's very hard to turn it on first game of the playoffs, right? You need a little bit of something to build on. I would hope it's these last couple games. If it's not the Hartford game, please let it be the Indy game. If we somehow manage to sneak into the playoffs as an 8th seed and we get a loss and a tie in these last couple games, I don't even know what to tell you about how that first game in the playoffs will go because it probably won't be great, especially if we end up in Louisville with no run of momentum at all. These 2 games are big for a variety of reasons, including getting into the playoffs. But I think even maybe just as important as actually getting into the playoffs is having the momentum needed to do well in the playoffs. If you want to go on a run, you need to end the year right. You cannot end the year with, a loss and a tie or back-to-back losses if you even manage to sneak into the playoffs with, some help from other teams. It would not bode well for the Rowdies' chances in the playoffs to end the season poorly. So, James, I hope your result is wrong with all due respect. I think we end the season with a win. Still, actually, I don't know if I think that for real, but I'm going to put that out there. Why not? I don't know. Whatever. Again, on paper, this team matches up with any team in the league.
Especially Indy with the way that they play.
Especially Indy. If it wasn't for how we're playing in the last several months, like you put this matchup in front of my face earlier on this season.
Yeah.
It's the same players, same coach, right? I mean, it's the same system. I'd be much more confident in my win prediction. It's just the form we're in currently has an effect on how the team plays. I'm still going to go with the win for the sake of being an optimist, though.
Okay, well, that is good. Eureka is a little more optimistic than me, but a little less than you. He predicts a 1-1 draw in the Indy 11 game. Either way, as I have said, whichever game you get tickets for, if you are one of the people who gets tickets, you have to go there. You have to be as loud as possible. We have to sell out these games. It's only 700 people. There has to be some type of home advantage to playing in these 2 games, especially these two. So please make sure that you go and you bring your loudest yelling, singing voice, all of that. All right, Carlos, I think we have done our preview, all the permutations that we went through, all the extra games that are involved in this. I'm sure that we can put it out on the internet and other places as well. So maybe we will get that along the way. But that is all that we will do tonight on this live stream and on this podcast that you are listening to tomorrow, Tuesday, if you listen on the podcast. So we will move on to extra time now. And there's really only one hit, unless, Carlos, you've got more. The U.S. women's national team will take on Iceland in a double friendly Thursday and Sunday. You can tune in and not miss either of the Rowdies games. That's probably what I will be doing, other than the Thursday one, because I think I have my own soccer league then. So everybody, please tune into those games as well. It is cool to see the new roster that was called up. If you are interested in watching the women's game, there is a lot of really, really cool stuff going on with the players that are getting called up and the players who might be getting their first chance. Eureka, as the producer, has left Carlos a note. Please do not die while he's coughing in the background. Thank you. If you are one of the people who's just listening, know that he has had a little bit of a coughing fit, and I guess you couldn't hear it because he was kind enough to mute himself while he passed away. Yeah. I could leave myself unmuted if you want. It wouldn't sound very nice. I can't imagine it's a very nice sounding effect to the ears of the listeners here. If you're listening to this live when you're just sitting on your couch or you're making dinner, or if you're listening to this one's recorded, I'm sure you wouldn't like to hear me like coughing into your car speakers on your commute. I feel like that would not sound great. Correct. Eureka throwing in another message in the chat here that we have all of my furnished apartment will deaden the sound now. I have like a couch and stuff, James. This is awesome. Like I'm not sleeping on an air mattress. My back doesn't hurt because I'm waking up on the floor. Like, this is awesome stuff. Like, I have like a desk, my little Xbox setup. This is awesome. This is great stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I am dying from my coughing attack, but I hope the Rowdies don't add on to I'm running out of transitions, James. Long story short, let's get the wins this week, because I'd be very sad if we don't. Yes, and we can celebrate Halloween in style if the Rowdies do that. Because I am only working until 7 and not later than that, I will be at both of these games for RBLR Sports, so I will see you there, hopefully, if you are one of the people who get the tickets. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. I think that we have covered everything, including Carlos with a pumpkin. Please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Threads, anywhere you are, we are as well, at RBLR Sports. I am mostly on Twitter. If you'd like to get at me, you can either use the hashtag AskRBLR or at RBLR James K. That's for me. Carlos, what about you?
At Carlos TPA10 on Twitter. I regularly put out the best content that the platform sees. Some are calling me in the top 5 content creators on the platform. And I would tend to agree. Come follow me and watch me talk about sports, I guess, question mark. Georgetown basketball is starting pretty soon, by the way. First game's coming up in a few weeks. So at least if the Rowdies season ends in disappointment, the Georgetown basketball team can help me keep up that run of disappointment.
And Carlos is so close to DC, he will be able to take in some of the culture around the team too. Exactly. Like and subscribe to our podcast, and you can get the full experience on YouTube, where you can see the lovely pumpkin background that we have got going on here. Not in the digital sense, but an actual pumpkin atop Carlos'
head. An actual pumpkin. It's a real pumpkin. It was $1 at a pumpkin patch, a little baby pumpkin.
There we go. We are also on Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Apple and Google Podcasts, all that stuff you already know. So for one more loss in the books, and hopefully 2 more wins at IMG Academy Soccer Stadium this week, come on, you Rowdies.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.